What's that word? Strazdanya? Suffering? Stradanya, yeah. I'm remembering now. When I come to Russia, some words I hear again and again. That's one of them. Very important word. In Vaishnava philosophy. Especially in this purport, it comes up again and again. Anyway, I only need to speak this far. If I don't have this, it doesn't matter, because the sound of my voice only has to reach to that ear, not to that ear. This verse and purport discuss the relationship of the supersoul with the conditioned souls. Generally, everyone prays to God, give me enjoyment and reduce or destroy my suffering. And people have faith in God because He helps them with that. And mundane religious, which means practically almost everyone who's religious, we just presume that the function of God is to give us happiness. And yeah, actually He does in many cases. At least He gives a sense of succor and support. There's one story, I don't know where it comes from, it's probably a Christian story, that someone after dying goes to God and he says, well, thank you for looking after me throughout my whole life. And they could see the picture of his life like 2 sets of footprints in the sand. So God was walking with me all through my life. But the Christian or whoever it is says, look at that period, the most difficult time of my life. There's only 1 set of footprints. You must have left me at that time. And God said, at that time I was carrying you. So people think this is a very profound story. But it just reinforces the idea that God is to help us in our sense gratification. His purpose is to provide us strength for our difficult journey throughout life. That's why people often lose faith when they find that people suffer so much, even though they are good. They presume themselves to be good. I am good. The concept Prabhupada describes in this verse gives a completely different perspective. Of course, we shouldn't think that Prabhupada is just another religious philosopher. There are so many religious philosophers who give their different ideas about God. In the history of Christianity, we see that even at the time of Jesus, there were so many different religious theories floating around. And after the passing away of Jesus, there were so many different theological theories floating around. And eventually, it became accepted as Christianity that Jesus is God, although not all Christians originally believed that. And someone invented the theory of the Trinity of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. You have that in Orthodox Christianity also? However, yeah, and then after that, again, Christianity, so many different theories coming out of Orthodox Christianity. So when we say Prabhupada is presenting here, we don't mean to say that he's another religious theorist. He is an Acharya. Now, the basic definition of Acharya is Achinoti Yah Shastrartham, who has absorbed and assimilated and realized the meaning of Shastra. Acharya Sthapyatyapi. He establishes on the basis of Shastra what is the proper course of action for others. Swayam Acharate Yasmad, and he also follows himself. He's not just talking about it, but he establishes by his own behavior. Acharyas tena kirtitaha. Such a person is glorified as an acharya. So this is the basic description of an acharya according to the Puranas. In Bhagavad Gita also, those who are fit to give diksha are called tattvadarshi, which Prabhupada translates as those who have seen the truth. So Prabhupada is not just speaking from the platform of theoretical philosophy, but of total realization, that the Paramatma is present in everyone's heart. And he gives opportunities for sense enjoyment. And he also gives the suffering that is intrinsically concomitant with enjoyment. We all want to enjoy in this material world. What's the word for enjoyment? Sanskrit word, not Russian word. It's not sukha. Bhoga. Sukha means happiness. There's a difference. Happiness is expected to be the result of bhoga. But that's just the point I wanted to make, because what kind of bhoga is there in this material world? What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Yehi sangsparshaja bhoga. How is enjoyment in this material world experienced? The senses, contact of the senses with their sense objects. So we presume that will give us sukh. But what does Krishna say? Yehi sangsparshaja bhoga. Next word? Dukkha. Dukkha yoniya evati. It is certainly the cause of distress. So Krishna gives the opportunity for material enjoyment. And he also speaks of material sukha. But in this verse, this Yehi sangsparshaja bhoga, he gives the bottom line or the definitive analysis that actually happiness in this enjoyment in this material world is simply a cause of distress. So as Super Soul, he awards opportunities for enjoyment to the conditioned soul and inevitable concomitant distress also. So materialistic religionists measure God's efficacy in terms of how much they can get out of him. But the Vaishnava understanding, or the real understanding that is given by the realized acharyas, is that he gives happiness and distress in this material world, but that he also gives us instructions by which we can understand that all this happiness and distress is all useless, it's all distressful. And that our real benefit comes when we stop telling God what to do, give me this, give me that, and stop arrogantly theorizing about what he might be, as if we had any qualification to do so. And start listening to what he has to say to us. Of course, he speaks to different people at different levels. But we should consider, is this God's highest message? Enjoy yourself in this material world with my help. Certain people think that God is partial to them. In this material world, people divide themselves into groups and consider themselves superior to others just because they happen to belong to a particular group. And just like you'll find among the Brahmin communities in India, every subsect of Brahmanas thinks that theirs is the best and all the others are just they're lower class Brahmins. So we find certain religions that say that, well, unless you follow this path, this is the only way, then the all-merciful, all-loving God will cast you into hell to burn forever without any hope of redemption. And we find the Jews considering themselves to be the chosen people, special people of God. And like that, among the Brahmins, the Brahmin caste, they used to think that they're very special, they're very close to God. So people take it that God is on our side. Just now there's a lot of fighting between Jews and Muslims in Israel, Lebanon. So the Jews are praying to God, help us, O God, to kill these nasty Muslims. And the Muslims are praying, help us, O Allah, to destroy these evil Jews. Prabhupada gave the example that the householder is praying, please protect me from the thief. And the thief is praying to God that please help me to make a successful robbery. So Prabhupada said that God becomes perplexed. Actually not so. Prabhupada also told that his godbrother, Sadananda from Germany, had told him one thing. That in Germany during the Second World War, at that time of course women were not so liberated as at the present time. So they didn't send them to war like they do in the present time. There are American women in Iraq demonstrating their compassionate feminine nature by shooting and torturing Iraqis. They're in the American army.
Sorry?
Now the American army has women soldiers. So the women in Germany were at home and they're praying, dear God, please send back our fathers, sons, husbands and brothers. But very few came back. So then so many became atheistic. That we prayed to God very sincerely, knowing but we were still crushed. The Russians and Americans and German and British. So people consider like that God, He's there to listen to our prayers. If He doesn't listen to our prayers, that if our prayers are not answered, that is proof there is not God. So such an attitude, it's not really theistic. They have so many different theistic theories. But the first thing they should do is to understand who is God. What is the nature of God? So in Bhagavad Gita that is very clearly given. The first thing stated about the nature of God, the three principal ways in which He relates to the conditioned souls. It's the last verse of the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So what's the first thing that Krishna says? Uktaram Yagyatapasa, which means Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He's the supreme proprietor and He's the supreme friend. Now, this point that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, this is not understood by the conditioned souls. The materialistic, almost theists cannot get out of the concept that I am the enjoyer. And they take it that God is our assistant. He assists us in our sense enjoyment. They cannot imagine that He is an enjoyer. Maybe they recognize the perversion in their own enjoyment. And they think that, well, God couldn't be so petty like us that He wants to enjoy. That's what the Mayavadis think. God is too great to this Vaishnava description of God that demeans the position of God. Just like the Mayavadis, they pretend to give respect to God by saying that He's so great that He cannot have any name. They protest that to give any name to Him is denigrating. And they think, well, the Supreme cannot have pastimes, friends. He can't like eating food or music because we like those things. And we are very petty beings. My desire to eat is something very petty. It's produced of my conditioned nature. So when I become liberated, then I won't have any more desires. To conquer over desires is the sign of liberation. So they think it's actually demeaning to God to say that He likes this kind of food, He likes to dress like this. They think that to say He has friends and pastimes, this is demeaning to Him. So Krishna addresses this misunderstanding in Bhagavad Gita. What does He say? No, I was looking for something else, another verse. That's also okay. Param Bhava Majananta. They do not know my Param Bhava. I was thinking of Janma Karma Chame Divyam Ivangyo Veti Tatvadaha Tyajvadeha punar janma na. That Krishna's pastimes are all transcendental. They are activities which in many ways resemble those of the conditioned souls, but they are different entirely in quality. Etad ishanam ishasya prakriti sthopi tad gunai nayujyate sadatmasthayar yatha buddhis sadashraya. The quality of being God, or the Etad Ishan, is that he is, or the very symptom of that he is being God, is that even though he's present within this material nature, he remains transcendental to it. And not only he, but anyone who takes shelter of him, they also become transcendental. So this is the basic point which gives us entrance into genuine God consciousness. There are many scholars of Bhagavad Gita, highly qualified. Some of them, they can recite the Bhagavad Gita, all the verses backwards. They know it so well. Who knows all the verses of Bhagavad Gita? And there are people with such good brains and such taste in Bhagavad Gita that they memorize it all. But they don't understand, in most cases they don't understand it. Because somehow or other they fail to grasp the point that Krishna is supreme. And thus they either accept God but they don't accept that he's Krishna. And thus they say that, well, Krishna is just mythology. Or they say that the tribal god Krishna got spliced onto the Vedic god Vishnu.
Spliced?
What I mean, got joined together with. Or they accept Krishna. Yes, Krishna is a very good philosopher, but they don't accept that he's God. Or they may accept that Krishna is God, but they don't know what God means. So, what is the meaning of God? That is explained earlier in this chapter with the very important word adhokshaja, which means one who is not perceived, one who is not perceived or experienced by the mundane senses, beginning with the eyes, the sense of seeing. One who is above that. So if we attempt to see Krishna without coming to the transcendental platform, so we might see Krishna but not in all his glory. If our consciousness is not transcendental, then if we see Krishna, we will see a lump of stone or wood or whatever. But in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, in one verse, the actual, highest spiritual principle is described. What's that verse? Savai pungsam ito bhaktiya adhokshaje. Then? Every word in this verse is so important. What is the param dharma, supreme occupation? Is it developing the economy so that every square inch from 30 kilometers from the center of Moscow is covered with high-rise buildings? Is it helping the poor? No. Bhakti to the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is specifically defined in this verse as adhokshaja, that he who is above the perception of the material mind and senses. And that bhakti, that has to be executed incessantly, non-stop, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. If you got the Russian numbers? Living too long in England. Now this is a very different concept to one that God is something like he's another kind of one idea is that he's just some vague power, too pure and too great to enjoy. No, he is the supreme enjoyer, but his enjoyment is pure and great. Now we cannot understand how enjoyment can be great, because enjoyment degrades. Just like if we run off with someone else's wife, that is a very degrading activity. But when Krishna apparently does that, that is the supreme purifying activity. That is described in the 10th canto of this great work, not in the 1st canto. It takes some time to understand this great work. And it really is a great work, isn't it? I mean, this is just the 1st canto. It's at least one lifetime, if not many lifetimes job, to understand the Divya Janma and Karma of Adhokshaja. It means change of heart, change of consciousness. Yeah, change means here. Not just a slight adjustment, but a wholesale change in our looking at reality from a completely different perspective. Our perspective at the moment is what is called Jagat Darshan, seeing within this material world, always looking here and there, what is there for me to enjoy? Or all the sense objects. Our tongue is always thinking how I can enjoy. Always we want to hear something pleasing for our senses. But Krishna explains that such attempts for material sense enjoyment are certainly the cause of distress. But that to understand that He is the supreme, all pure enjoyer, that is the beginning of our truly happy life. That He enjoys does not mean that He's degraded to the level of a petty being. Rather, by exhibiting His pastimes, He has given some hope to the conditioned souls in this universe. So the super soul is within everyone's heart. And yes, He gives what you deserve. Oh, you want a lot of money? Okay, take it. You want to be a big rich king? Okay, take the position. Like this, there are hundreds and thousands of material benedictions, which Krishna may give directly or through His representative. Of course, when we say Krishna, we just pray to Him and He gives. It's not just so easy. We have to deserve it also. Otherwise, our benediction might come in a different way. We want to be a leader among people, but at the same time, we perform sinful activities. So that means to become a leader of the people means you have to get some punya. So if we don't have the punya to become the leader of the people, Krishna might satisfy that desire to be a leader in the next life by making us the leader of a pack of dogs running in the street. Krishna He comes in this world to show His beautiful pastimes. And He teaches Bhagavad Gita. And He says, in Prabhupada's words, just give up all this nonsense and surrender to me. Real human civilization begins with Varnashram Dharma. Krishna says, give that up and surrender to me. Give that up and surrender to me. This is the super soul in our hearts is always trying to get this message to us. It's very difficult to get anyone to hear this message because we are very much allergic to it. Sometimes we say, well, we're reading so many books, but not so many people come from the books.
Not so many?
People come to Krishna consciousness from reading the book. But don't worry, the message is going out. If it was not so, then by now the people of the world should have totally rejected this movement. Our books are going out in hundreds and thousands and millions throughout the world. And you might think that by now the government should have banned these books because Prabhupada's against democracy, he's against artificial equality of the sexes. He says that slaughterhouses should be closed. He says that drinking wine is abominable. So some people must have read these books. But why they're not banning these books? Rather, so many people are appreciating this movement more and more. That's because Prabhupada presents the subject matter so clearly that people who read it have to start to accept it. Prabhupada, as the pure devotee Acharya, is the representative of the Super Soul. Krishna is not personally present, standing before us. So he comes as the Guru to teach the same truths he has taught him. Teaches us to turn our face towards Krishna. That we are not meant to enjoy this world. We are meant only for serving Krishna for his pleasure. To turn people to this consciousness is the duty of a preacher. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur defined this as the actual work of a preacher. Jive viparita ruchi parivartan kara. Said this is the actual work of our society. That means that to turn around the misplaced sentiment or feelings of the conditioned souls. Turn it right around from thinking, I am the enjoyer, I am the controller, to actually understanding that Krishna alone is the enjoyer, Krishna alone is the controller. It's not such an easy job, but the books are having their effect. People are reading and becoming purified and wanting to know more. So let us read these books again and again, discuss them among ourselves, which is essential for our own spiritual benefit. And also so that we can speak to people as required about this understanding of actual God consciousness. That actual God consciousness actual God consciousness is characterized by Krishnarte Akila Cheshta, everything done for the whole and sole pleasure of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. I'll finish there because you have to go out and distribute the books. So please pray to the Super Soul within your heart for the inspiration and the courage and the right words to say while you're distributing the books. And please pray to the Super Soul in the hearts of the people you are approaching. And Krishna, please inspire them to take this book. This is the mission of Krishna. All the Vedic literatures of which the Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of, they all simply teach Krishna is supreme, therefore we should surrender to him. Hare Krishna. Any question?
Вопросы есть?
This is a very important chapter.
Это очень важная глава.
Especially the verses near the beginning. Many verses near the beginning of this chapter are quoted again and again and again as the basic points of our Vaishnava philosophy.
Особенно стихи первой половины этой главы цитируются очень часто как основы нашей вайшнавской философии.
So please try and study and understand it very carefully.
Пожалуйста, пытайтесь изучать эту главу очень внимательно и глубоко понять ее.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Вся слава Шриле Прабхупаде.
Swashlave Srila Prabhupada.
Вся слава Шриле Прабхупаде.